the Trump stuff. And I know where I heard it first. I know where people who watch this show heard it first. They heard it out of your mouth. Julie, what are we to make of all this?
I mean, this is going to be a really sad day for America. Unfortunately, you will see half the country and the entire national news media cheering this. But this is new dangerous territory for a country. It puts us on par with banana republics and other Marxist, historical Marxist countries where things like this happen. Not only where you round up, concoct bogus charges and investigations into a former president or political leader, but also to his supporters. And as you know, Jesse, that's already been happening now for 2.5 years. So this first indictment from Jack Smith, the special counsel handpicked by Merrick Garland, the first set of criminal indictments will be related to Trump's possession of classified documents and alleged obstruction of that investigation. But as you know, Jesse, this is only the first bite of this apple. And what's to come related to the January 6th investigation, those charges will be far worse and pose a far greater legal jeopardy for the president than the classified documents.
Okay, so help me understand this, Julie. So this is not going to include the whole January 6th stuff. This is just about the documents, or are they combining it all? This is the JV and the V is going to come later. Is that what I'm to take from this?
Yeah, that's a very good way of putting it. This is probably the weakest case. It's the easiest case. There will probably be 2 indictments, one in the Southern District of Florida that will deal with probably the obstruction case, since that allegedly happened at Mar-a-Lago. And then D.C. could have an Espionage Act, a violation or indictment, which is just crazy. But this will relate to the classified documents. Jack Smith is also continuing to investigate Trump for the events of January 6th. And Jesse, as you and I have spoken about, this is far more dangerous for Trump because this could include charges like seditious conspiracy, obstruction of an official proceeding, conspiring to obstruct. Those are very serious felony charges that will be easy to prove in Washington, D.C. And all of those carry pretty hefty prison sentences. So that will be an even bigger bombshell. And that indictment I expect maybe July, August, but not too much further away.
Okay, so why, let's go back to the obstruction one really quickly, the baby one, the junior varsity one. Why do this in Florida when obviously they would have a much more favorable jury in D.C. and we're not dealing with people who follow the law here? Is it just that they had to do it in Florida?
They did, Jesse. What it looks like, and the New York Times was the first outlet to report this Florida grand jury. It looks like Smith kind of stepped into a little snag there, this genius, prosecutor from The Hague, finally realizing that the alleged crime happened in Florida. It did not happen in Washington, D.C. So if he brought charges solely out of Washington, D.C., Trump's team would have a very strong legal grounds to object to that venue, arguing that it should have been investigated and prosecuted in Florida. But get this, Jesse, everything did mostly take place in D.C., where, as you know, that court system is nothing but a rubber stamp. So it sounds like they'll just take all the grand jury testimony that they collected in D.C., all of the evidence that the judges allowed, and just read that into the grand jury sitting in Florida. So that's just a whole other scandal in and of itself. But this is how this DOJ operates, especially Jack Smith, because as you know, this is a corrupt and totally unaccountable government agency weaponized against Trump and his voters.
Trump's former attorneys are going on TV alleging, well, here they are.
I witnessed a lot of misconduct. I was really stunned by what I saw in the grand jury room by the conduct of the prosecutors. They made many attempts to try to get at privileged communications. They would ask me about conversations with my client. They would make improper references to the jury, trying to mislead them about that. At one point, it got to the level where, they're asking me this again, and then they'll turn to the grand jury and they say, so you're refusing to provide this information. Like, no, I'm not refusing to provide. The ethical rules prohibit me. Even if the answer to this question is helpful, I'm not allowed to give it. And I turned to the jury and I said, and she knows it. She knows that it's an improper question. It's an improper inference.
What the heck's he talking about?
Well, he's talking, of course, about a grand jury in Washington, D.C. Now, Jesse, grand juries are made up of the same voters that a regular jury is made up of. So this is a city that's almost 100% Democratic who are listening to this. So he's talking about whoever the federal prosecutor is tied to Jack Smith's team. Of course, anyone who testifies or is a witness does not have their own legal counsel in the room. This is a totally one-sided operation. And unfortunately, the grand jury process has also been corrupted in this country as well, cannot be trusted. And that's a reason why. You know, Jesse, back in the day, if a reporter had heard something like that, an accusation, they would be all over the place trying to find out who their prosecutor was, whether there was any quid pro quo for, say, a judgeship, if a witness said what the prosecution wanted. But of course, that's not the case because the media is as invested in these indictments against Donald Trump than Joe Biden's regime and this Department of Justice.